And hello to everybody. My name is Jonah Rosenblum. I'm sports editor of the Daily Northwestern. I'm joined here today by football beat writers Josh Walfish and Colin Becht. Well, another crossroads in Northwestern season. It seems like every week is a crossroads, but a particularly pivotal game this weekend as Penn State travels to take on Northwestern at Ryan Field. The Nittany Lions are ranked number 21 in the country. They've won 5 straight games, and they're taking on a Wildcats team that really is on the opposite side of things, having lost 4 straight. Let's start with you, Colin. This secondary, we've been talking about them all season. They've been having problems all season, but a little bit of a new wrinkle against Iowa. What happened was, it was just a communications issue. That's what they said. They said that they're having multiple breakdowns. They just were not communicating well on the field, and for that to happen in Week 6 is pretty startling. If you could talk a little bit about what happened against the Hawkeyes and how they can hope to improve that for this week's game.
Well, as you mentioned, Demetrius Dugar after the game was talking about how basically their checks that they make on the field. They get the play call, but then if they see a different look from the offense, they switch the secondary's coverage. It might be switching from man to zone or zone to man. And the problem was that certain guys were playing different types of defense. Some of them were switching into zone, some were staying in man. And when you do that, that leaves someone wide open behind the defense, as Iowa exploited several times. And that's a crucial problem having midway through the season. That's like a Week 1 problem. That should not be a Week 6 problem. That's this kind of thing they should have already had sorted out. They should have had it sorted out really in spring or early or summer practices. Yeah. So the fact that it's happening at Week 6 is very scary. We'll see how they adapt to it coming home. But it's not really a crowd noise problem, because most of the crowd noise is when the home team's defense is on the field. So it wasn't like Kinnick Stadium could really have been getting to them that much. So very scary. We'll see how they adapt to it this week, but it certainly will take an adaptation. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to get exploited.
And you wonder if maybe it'll be a little smoother for secondary this week with Demetrius Dugar now in his 2nd week as a starter. Maybe things will get a little more calm in the secondary. Josh, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Penn State's defense. They are giving up 11.6 points per game. That's a really impressive number. They're 6th in the country. Of course, my question is, are they for real? We discussed this with Michigan, and looking at Penn State's opponent list, they've beaten Temple, Eastern Michigan, Indiana, Iowa, Purdue. Those aren't exactly the best offenses in the country. So my question is this a really good Nittany Lions defense, or have they just been playing mediocre opponents the entire year?
Anytime you give up less than 12 points a game, 6, 7 games into a season, you have to be doing something right. So I definitely think this is for, unlike Michigan, where we saw them play one good opponent and just have tremendous amount of lapses, Penn State has really stayed consistent, whether or not they played a deep offense like even Alabama. They really were able to keep Alabama's offense in check. Same thing with Iowa. Iowa is a better offense than scoring 3 points. Everybody here knows that. But I think the key to Penn State's defense and why they've been so good is they've been able to really shut down what each offense is good at. So they were able to flush and kind of fluster James Vandenberg against Iowa. They were able to stop Bernard Pierce against Temple. Those are 2 key aspects, or those are aspects I believe Penn State is very good at, stopping what the opposition does very well.
And then, Colin, I wanted to turn to the quarterbacks, to the Northwestern quarterbacks, that is. And, we've all seen that Dan Persa is not the quarterback he was in 2010. But still, I thought it was rather startling in Michigan in your article on Tuesday that Dan Persa admitted he's not as fast as he once was. And I can't remember exactly what Fitz's quote is, but he was once, I guess, a 4.4 guy, and now he's a 4.65 guy. So now that Persa, last year he was really a dual-threat quarterback. And now he's really just in there to throw the ball, it seems like. How does that affect Persa's role, and then where does Coulter come in the equation?
Well, exactly, as you said, Persa now, he isn't dual threat. He hasn't finished a game yet with positive rushing yards. So he's cool. He's not scrambling and creating plays with his feet like he did last year. He can still move a little bit, get outside the pocket, evade tacklers. So he's not Peyton Manning or anything, but he isn't the playmaker to pick up first downs, move the chains with his feet. He can still throw the ball pretty accurately, so he's obviously valuable to the offense. But as we saw against Iowa, Northwestern's going to go with that 2-quarterback system. They'll bring in Coulter to run the option offense that they might have just stuck all with Persa last year. And it was pretty effective against Iowa. Coulter got the job done picking up yards with his feet, got the running backs to the ball on options to get them considerable yards on the ground. So it can be effective. Now, they don't throw the ball too much when Coulter's in there, and if Then you continue to do that, defenses are going to start, assuming the run anytime Coulter comes in. So they're going to have to let Coulter throw the ball a little bit more than they have so far with him in that option offense, or else defenses are going to start sacking the box. But, until a defense really steps up and stops that Coulter offense, Northwestern will continue to stick with that 2-quarterback system.
And it is interesting. I do think Coulter has improved in his aerial attack over the course of the season. So the question is, will Fitz kind of loosen it up a little bit and let him toss the ball around? Josh, I wanted to ask you a little bit about this losing streak. Northwestern has lost 4 straight games now, and they're on the wrong side of history at this point. This is the worst losing streak they've had since 2006, Coach Pat Fitzgerald's first year, or at least first year as head coach. The question is, what is morale like right now, both on campus, on the football practice fields in Evanston? I mean, obviously, this is a type of suffering that Northwestern fans haven't had to endure in quite a while now. What's it been like?
I mean, well, I guess we'll start with the team. Fitz made an interesting statement after practice on Tuesday. He said he'd be more concerned if this team was playing like warm garbage. He said that in reality, this team's been playing well. They just haven't been making enough plays to win the game. But it's a very different attitude on campus. On campus, there is people are hitting the panic button. And as much as I want to say, don't hit the panic button, as fans, you're kind of designed to say, wait, what's happening? We haven't had this sort of losing streak in a while. What's happening? Let's hit the panic button and kind of freak out. But I'm glad to see at least the team is not freaking out. They're saying, hey, we're playing well, we're doing things right, we just have to do more things right for us to get that elusive victory.
And they need to turn it around quick. With a 2-4 record, they need to win 4 of their last 6 just to become bowl eligible. So perhaps some reason for the fans' panic. Let's turn to the picks now. And Josh, you told us last week, and really a shocking admission here on national TV. But Josh, you mentioned that you're not going to shave until Northwestern wins a game. And so my question, we're going to start actually with Colin. But Colin, will Josh get to shave on Sunday? Finally, at long last.
No, Jonah, he won't be shaving. With Penn State's defense, Northwestern, they're still going to score points because they're still a good offense. Penn State's passing attack isn't as special as say Iowa's is. So they're not going to score as much as basically Iowa, Michigan, and Illinois have. They're still going to get enough offensive production. Silas Reed's going to get his carries. He's going to get his yards. And with the secondary as weak as it is, McGloin's going to get his chances. I think he'll probably throw for like 2 touchdowns. And that'll be enough that even though Northwestern still gets some offensive production, Penn State wins this one 28-24.
And Josh, let's hear your pick.
First, I'm going to have to make an admission. My mother is coming this weekend to visit, so...
Mazel tov.
Thank you. But she was adamant that I shave before she arrives. So I will be clean-shaven for next week's video. But I think it will still be justified. I think Northwestern wins. I think the fact that Penn State doesn't have Derek Moy allows Northwestern to sell out a little bit more on the run, stop Silas Red, and really force Rob Baldwin or Mac McGloin to win it through the air. And I think Northwestern will do just enough in the secondary with the leadership of Brian Peters to make sure that Matt McGloin or Rob Bolden doesn't do enough in the air. I think Northwestern utilized the same sort of offensive attack that was successful in the first half last year against Penn State. They win this game 17-10.
Josh, you are such a smart man, and you raised so many good points. You're right about them not having Derek Moy. That is a huge break for Northwestern, especially when you consider the way Northwestern has struggled against A.J. Jenkins and Marvin McNutt. So that's a huge break. So yeah, it's tempting. Northwestern is very likely to win this game without Derek Moy. But Penn State still wins it. And you know why they win it, Josh? Because Matt McGloin is an underrated quarterback. He is very underrated. 5 touchdowns against just 2 interceptions. And Silas Red is going to do the exact same thing he did last year. He is going to tear the Wildcats to bits. I agree with Colin. Penn State 28-24 and more misery and heartbreak in Evanston. Anyway, wrapping up here from the Daily Northwestern studios. For Colin Becht and Josh Walfish, I'm Jonah Rosenblum. Thank you so much for joining us, and please check the www.dailynorthwestern.com for our live blog and for all sorts of post-game coverage from Ryan Field, and also follow us on Twitter at The Daily Sports. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
The Corsair, everybody.